All right. Oh, no, I don't want to do that. Okay, good. There we go. Good morning, everybody. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for your service to your districts and communities. It's so great to see you all this morning, although virtually. Hopefully our communities are getting back to somewhat normal. I know Phoenix Union was one of the last to return for some in-person hybrid type learning, and a lot of you have been back in session for a while, but if you haven't, hopefully things are starting to return for you, and that looks like a really bright future on the horizon. Um, I'd like to take a quick moment before we start our program to thank our sponsor this morning, Aptigee. Aptigee is with us new this year. They've jumped on board with Aspera, and we just want to thank them for helping us provide high quality experiences for our members. As you all know, there's a balance between sponsorships and programming, and they do go hand in hand. So we just appreciate our sponsors that are willing to step up and support us so that we can provide high quality PD experiences like this for our members. Our board knows how valuable your time is, and we appreciate you spending it with us this morning. I want to give a quick shout out to Don Antistenis and Matt Stamp for their work as our vice presidents of programming. If you don't know them or haven't had a chance to speak with them, they're absolute rock stars. They not only put together these awesome quarterly meetings, but they've also held socials and done quite a bit to help engage our membership and supporters through the pandemic and otherwise. So just great work to you two. And they're planning an incredible summer conference. As all of you know from the communication in the listserv, the board made the decision to make the summer conference virtual this year. That was not an easy call as things open up and it starts to look more and more like in-person gatherings are going to become the norm again, hopefully, as vaccines become more readily available. We just realized as a board that we were not able to tell the future. And all of you know from our experience through this pandemic that none of us have been able to tell the future. I wish we could. So we wanted to make sure that one thing was kept in place, and that was that we had a summer conference at all. We didn't want to start planning an in-person conference, signing contracts, putting things in place, and then have another spike in COVID or something happen that would not allow us to do a summer conference. And last year, knowing that the pandemic had hit right before our summer conference and we were unable to have one at all, we thought that the most important thing to do would be to move forward with something that we could plan. So we are doing a virtual summer conference. It's going to be incredible. It's going to be incredible. We have already been deliberating over who to bring in as PD and speakers. And there's just a really awesome program. We're going to have a lot of really cool things. And Matt's going to touch on those in just a moment. Let's see. So the summer conference is going to be on June 10th. So please mark your calendars. It is a one-day conference since we are doing it virtual. It's going to be on June 10th. And we're theming it this year. This year's theme is forward thinking. As all of you know, that we've been through a lot this year, and it's time for us to start forward thinking and moving ahead and starting to heal and support our communities and open back up, hopefully, as things get better and better. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Matt Stamp so he can walk you through some of the awesome things we have planned for the summer conference. Mr. Stamp.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We're excited to have another meeting here with you guys. And Don and I are extremely excited to announce the summer conference and kind of give you some teasers and announce that registration is open. So I'm going to share my screen and go through a couple highlights. All right, Don, do we have the website up? Perfect. So here we are at the Aspera website. If you go to events and 2021 annual conference, you will see our landing page for the conference, and you can start to learn more about the conference. Here's the awesome logo designed by Zach. Thank you, Zach, for taking the time to do that and stepping up the game with our logos and our visuals. So here we are. We want to thank Blackboard, who's going to be the presenting sponsor of the conference. And let's go through some of the things to know here. So registration is open. There's a link here on this page to register. It goes to a quick form, super easy to register. And for ASPR members, it's only $50. It's, time and time again, we say this every year. It's one of the best values. We know our membership is one of the best values in the country, and this conference is also one of the best values for $50. So we hope that all of you can attend. As Richard said, it was difficult to make the decision to go virtual because it's such a fun conference in person. But one of the pros to going virtual is that we're able to really extend our reach with our presenters, with our keynote, even with our attendees. A lot of people that might not be able to attend in person, it's much easier for them to attend virtually. So we're really looking forward to a great event with national speakers. One thing that we do want to point out here is the first 125 attendees to register will receive a conference swag bag prior to the conference. So if you know you're coming, make sure get on today. You don't have to submit a payment today. You can just submit your registration. It's a couple fields in the form and lock in your spot so you can get that swag bag. We're going to mail those out to every conference attendee, the first 125, and there's going to be some great stuff in there for you to enjoy during the conference, and your raffle tickets and much more. So that's important to put out there. We want to announce that there is going to be a pre-conference trivia night, virtual as well. This is going to be Wednesday, June 9th from 5 to 6 p.m. Don and I have been working on that, and we're really excited for this. It's just going to be a quick virtual trivia that we have a platform coming in to kind of help us host, and just a fun way to get the conference started. So we hope that you'll join us on that night as well. And then here you can see a couple things that we have in the works. We are kind of fine tuning the agenda right now with everything that we have going on, but I do want to share a couple of the sessions that we have. Let's see, Don, did that change? Perfect. So here's a couple of the breakout sessions that we do have locked in. We have topics on self-care. You'll see that first presentation, why take care of yourself doesn't work and what to do instead. We have community engagement. We have digital storytelling from Derek Duncan, who many of you may know from NSPRA conferences. Pretty much every presentation is a national presenter. Like I said, it's easier for us to go out and get national presentations on Zoom. So it's going to be a real benefit this year. Leadership with our Southwest president, using Instagram to communicate with students, a great social media presentation, turning parents into brand evangelists, and an APR versus masters kind of look at, what route is best for you. So that's just a couple that we already have locked in. Don and I are continuing to work on getting the timings, and it's just going to be a full day of learning, a full day of connecting. And we have our afternoon speaker is the NSPRA president, we're just proud to have and honored to have at our event. And she's going to talk to us about keys to amplifying your system story and really how to move forward into next year. So Leslie Brewington is going to be there for that, and we're excited for that. We'll have raffles throughout the day, and at the end of the day, giveaways and yoga session in the morning. So we have a lot planned for you guys. Registration is now open. We will be putting out the agenda in the coming week or two, so you can kind of see what you might want to look ahead to and plan for. But please save the date on the calendar. Please get registered so we can get numbers put together, and reach out to Don and I if you have any questions or have any input. We're happy to talk to you guys. Don, did I hit everything on the conference? Do you have any?
Yep, you did. The only other thing is that we will also have a morning keynote that is to be announced. So look out for that as well, and register today.
Thank you, everyone. So now I'm going to transition into our first presentation for today. And thank you for everyone for taking the time this morning to be here. I am going to bring up a new screen share. Let's see. Do we have the Twitter up, Don? Thumbs up. Okay. I don't have all the faces up. Kathy, are you in the room yet? Can I get
I am here.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I just want to take a second to introduce Kathy. We are really excited to have Kathy here this morning and really appreciative. You know, one of the things with Zoom, these virtual quarterly meetings is we can have great presenters like Kathy from Chicago who can just come in and, you know, give us her knowledge and teach from Chicago. But one of the, I guess, struggles is the time zone issue. So Kathy and I had a little mix up on the time zone. Arizona makes it a little extra tricky with having kind of their own time zone. But I just want to thank Kathy for kind of pivoting this morning when she thought it was an hour earlier, and we went back and forth. But she made it work. She wanted to be here to talk to you guys, and I will just give her a quick introduction and then pass it over to her. So, Kathy Kajigian, how did I do?
You did it absolutely right.
APR is Director of Communications and Strategic Planning for Glenview School District 34, an elementary district in suburban Chicago. Kathy co-moderates K-12 PR Chat, the Twitter chat for school communication professionals, and connects the school PR walkers, runners, and joggers through hashtag K-12 PR Fit and K-12 PR 5K at the annual NSPRA seminar. And for my introduction, I wanted to bring up her Twitter profile because she is an incredible follow on Twitter. She's an incredible asset to NSPRA. If you haven't followed her, please go to Twitter and do that. I met her a couple years ago. I think I heard about her at the LA NSPRA, and she was putting these running sessions together at like 5 in the morning. Zach and Stephanie would get up and at 5 in the morning go run with her. And then I was like, that's just not for me. That's just a little early. Then, you know, in Washington, Zach kept pushing, and in DC, and I said, hey, maybe it is for me. I'm going to give it a try, and went running with them in DC one morning. And it was honestly one of the best parts of that conference, and just really enjoy her enthusiasm and what she brings to the table nationally, and that she was willing to be here today to talk to us. So I'm going to hand it over to Kathy and just say thank you for being here.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Matt, for the introduction, and thank you all for the welcome. I am so glad to be here. I am going to share my screen. Here we go. Oh, hold on. I've got to do that again because I need to make sure I have a few videos. I want to make sure you can hear that. Okay. All right. So I am so excited that Matt invited me, excited that you are talking about internal communications. It's something I'm really passionate about, and something that I have a whole lot of fun with. So I hope I can convey some of that excitement and give you all some ideas on approaching internal communication to work with HR as a partner and to build culture in your organization. So again, thanks. Matt gave the introduction of who I am. District 34 is an early childhood through 8th grade district here in a north suburb of Chicago. We are a diverse community. We have 62 languages spoken in the homes of our students. So that is a lot of fun for me to work with a culturally, linguistically, economically diverse community. But really about me, I am more than my job. And in case anyone doubted what Matt was saying, that he got up and did a run, I have a picture. Matt, I see you there, and Zach, Stephanie, I think you're in there too. At the bottom, that is our inaugural K-12 PR 5K, which is an arm of K-12 PR Fit, a leg of K-12 PR Chat. I know some of you have joined K-12 PR Chat in the past, and I hope you will continue to follow that hashtag, especially as we move toward NSPRA seminar, because we hope to connect either in person or virtually, and that's the best way to do it when we get closer this summer. I am a former NSPRA board member, so I had to find a picture with me and Heidi in there. Heidi was the best roommate an NSPRA board member could ever have. And our current NSPRA board, you are so lucky that you'll be hearing from Leslie Bruinton. She is leading that board and moving our organization forward. And I know there will be opportunities for chapters to, connect in different ways. And it's just really exciting where our profession is going. I love kale. I meditate every day. If you follow me on Twitter, you often see that I tweet out my meditations. Also do yoga, so that's really cool that you're starting your seminar with yoga. I am a podcast lover, particularly the Moth podcast, which is a storytelling. Down in the left side, you see I Love Stories, that's the Moth logo. And I would encourage all of you to subscribe to the Moth, or at least listen to a couple of episodes, because we are storytellers. We are storytellers for all of our audiences, and the Moth is a great way to hear storytellers and adapt your own storytelling talents by listening to others. I also have 3 grown kids, one of whom just got a puppy. So when she comes home from college, we will be having a puppy in the house, and my daughter has a boyfriend. So we have an expanding family. Sometimes I love the puppy and the boyfriend more than my kids, but I am very thankful to my family. As you all know, the support that they have had to provide to us, especially in this past year, is just incredible. So we couldn't do it without them, right? So they get some playtime here. I want to start off by talking about partnering with human resources. HRPR really is the perfect pair. Batman and Robin, K-12 PR cheese and wine. We haven't really taken off with that K-12 PR cheese nationally, but we're going to work on that. But really, if you can partner with HR, you are doing so much for communications and culture in your district. I have been really fortunate, my previous district and in my current district, to have really good friends in the HR role. And we have worked together to really create cultures of communications in our district. On the left is Dale Fisher in Deerfield District 109, and Heather Hopkins is my current partner in communication crime here in District 34. She is lucky enough to be retiring at the end of this year. Boy, she picked that right. So I'll have a new BFF coming on. Kevin Dorkin will be our HR director starting July 1st. He is a principal, and when I kind of gave him a little version of this presentation when he was hired last month, and explaining how we work together and how we're going to be BFFs, he was all on board. So I'm really excited. He's a great communicator, so it's going to be good to have him in that role. And it's my job to give them the tools to amplify their initiatives, because when HR and PR work together, we're facing the same struggles. There's our all internal focus, working with the unions, working with all staff, and providing the support. But we're both facing the same struggles. So proximity can help. My office in my old district was really close to Dale Fisher. So we were able to have conversations just naturally. Here I'm at the other end of the building, but Heather and I make a real effort to work together, to sit in each other's offices or find a common place to work together, or, now on Zoom to be together and just be talking through what we're doing, just so we know what we're doing, and proactively finding places where we can connect. And where it really starts is at new teacher orientation. In our district, HR owns traditionally new teacher orientation. It makes the plans for what those day, 2 days, 3 days look like. But I weaseled my way into Heather Hopkins' heart. And when I started, I partnered with her on new teacher orientation and talked about ways where this is kind of the way we build culture from day one, or even thinking back before day one, how we build culture together in HR initiatives like new teacher orientation. And it's really helped us grow culture everywhere. And the big place that we did this, the key element in welcoming our new staff is our greatest HR PR partnership, which is the Mentor League. This is our mentor program where we have veteran staff who pair with teachers who are new to the district. And this is really, it comes from data. Studies show that in education and in business, that mentor programs increase retention and staff satisfaction. And you think about it now with all the stresses and all the changes in education. I'm thinking ahead to August, if we are lucky enough to be able to bring on new teachers, or the likelihood of it because teachers retire and we're bringing on new teachers. How do we support those new staff members in their social emotional health and reducing their stress? Having a mentor is not only teaching them the ins and outs of navigating our district or their school or their role, but it's also just navigating the stresses of being a teacher. HR and our teaching and learning department really kind of led this mentor program because we had systems of communications in place, and because I work so closely with HR, they knew how to kind of run with this. So I was there to support them. But it was something that HR and teaching and learning really led. They created the theme. They created a newsletter to recruit our staff to be mentors. They used social media to highlight the mentors, and I was just kind of in the background to do that. They had the tools because the partnership already existed. So the mentor process to become a mentor was competitive. They had our staff had to fill out an application. They had to go through a rigorous application process. And so it was a big deal when we chose our mentors. So I'm going to just play a quick video of what it looked like. We developed, or they developed, and I followed along, the caping process to go and surprise mentors in their classroom when they found out that they were chosen.
So we shared this in our staff newsletter, and it was one of our most clicked on links in our staff newsletter ever. People were really excited to have this program, and people were really excited to celebrate the mentors and to be part of the Mentor League. The mentors then went through training. That picture at the beginning with where they were all dressed up as mentors, that was part of the fun of mentor training. They all got their capes and superheroes, and we played out that theme. Heather Hopkins is the queen of swag, and we'll talk about swag a little bit later, but they were all decked out in some superhero fun, and we had the photo booth going. So being a mentor was a big deal and really supported a culture of connecting with each other and supporting each other. Again, back to staff wellness. sorry, and go forward. The mentors, when we had new teachers in for new teacher orientation, the mentors planned the programming to work with the new teachers, and they partnered off, they developed this creative, work together to develop what their hopes were in their new role and for the new school year. So they had a whole day of different activities. This was one of them, and it really did my heart good. We had just come off of a rebranding and a strategic plan. So we were really focusing at this time on our new brand and our strategic plan, our mission, vision, and values, and aspire, explore, discover, connect. That's our motto, and it showed up in almost every drawing that the mentor teams did, which is an indication that that's, again, starting from the beginning. These new teachers were imparted the culture right from the start. They knew our logo, they knew our strategic plan, our mission, vision, and values right from the start. And again, that wasn't anything that I planned. That was something that has come naturally with communications from HR and embracing the brand. So that brings me to my next topic, which is that branding is internal communications. When we had our rebranding, we really thought through how our staff embraced it, and it was a staff process in developing our brand, and we now use it in recruiting videos. So here's a video we use that really imparts our brand, and shared this out with our Twitter hashtag #WeAreD34, so that those new teachers we saw in the last slide really already had a sense of who we are, and they saw our logo, and they saw aspire, explore, discover, connect.
In District 34, we are fortunate to have a community that strongly supports schools and to have the most caring, talented professionals who support the children and families of Glenview. We come together to meet our mission to empower all learners to aspire to reach their highest potential, explore their passions and interests, discover pathways to success, connect with each other, the community, and the world.
Since I came to Glenview, learning has grown. It has become bigger and wider, and there are opportunities for everything.
Teachers in this district, my hope is that they feel as though they have the latitude to take risks and to really try new things when they're working with children, to really explore and not have boundary conditions in place.
My favorite part about District 34 is if you want to grow, you can grow.
You can collaborate across a grade level. We have weekly team meetings, we have monthly team meetings with specialists around the building to come up with creative, innovative ways to teach what we teach.
We're all learning. We're all learners. We feed that passion and inquiry for learning.
Glenview has so much to offer, and sometimes it just takes a little bit of support to help navigate.
In District 34, we have the benefit of having this mentoring program that is expanding. Whether you are new to the district or new to teaching, you get somebody to work with. If you're new to teaching, you are being brought into a profession. And if you're new to the district, then you're also new to all of the different ways that any organization of people will do things.
If teachers bring their best ideas each day, if they bring their big hearts, and they take the effort to understand who their students are in their classroom, that these magical things happen.
It is unbelievable to walk through our buildings and see the type of passion and commitment that we have.
And everything we do and every conversation that we engage in as educators, whether it be an administrator or a classroom teacher or a specialist, we always put the students first.
Everybody is here for our children. It's thrilling, really.
So again, internal communications and culture building, this is an example. This begins before staff walk in the door, and it builds when prospective staff see your message, see what your organization is like, see who the people are in your organization, and they decide if it's a good fit, and then they apply. And, so there's some natural selection, so people gravitate toward your district and may be more likely to be a good candidate and move through the process when you put your culture out there for everyone to see. Of course, the best part of branding and building culture and pride is swag. Again, I said Heather Hopkins is the queen of swag. She just knows what people like, and with our new branding, it was really fun to be able to do some new swag. We have a swag shop, a D34 swag shop that we built, so people can order things at any time, and we continue to add to that. Let's see what's on there now. We have Friday. Today is Friday. I'm so excited. As I said, we have 62 languages spoken in our homes. So one of our t-shirts and sweatshirts is our logo that includes the word cloud of all the languages that are spoken here. So it's really fun to be able to share this out. I think we just put some teas on there for students. So we're going to start putting this out beyond just staff. But so far, this has been, the hub of some staff swag that they can purchase themselves. We try to give away swag when we can as prizes, and I'll talk about our raffle and how people want swag there. So, and just this week, we went back all kids all in, starting on Wednesday. And we'll talk about staff wellness and our wellness initiative. We took Monday and Tuesday as professional development days for staff. And this whole week we're calling a celebration, SEL, social emotional learning. And we got swag for all the staff for the celebration. That's a picture of one of our buildings with every single staff member wearing their celebration t-shirt. And just, again, that was part of our HR partnership. How do we focus on staff on these 2 days as we're moving into this incredibly stressful time? We've moved environments in our district. We were calling it our next first day on Wednesday, welcoming kids back in, because we've had so many changes. Some people tweeted out that it was the fourth first day or the fifth. And I said, we've totally lost count. So we just have to call it our next first day. So swag really is part of branding. And again, with that focus on SEL and self-care for staff, we really leaned in heavy. We had on Monday a presentation from Dr. Doug Bolton, whose focus is on trauma-informed presentations, how to care for staff, because you can't care for children unless you care for yourself. We all know what teachers are going through, but I thought this really nailed it. Hearing this teacher's
We're working
voice.
really hard. We're trying to figure this out. Teachers aren't lazy. Teachers aren't wanting to stay home because it's easier. This is challenging. I feel like a brand new teacher. I've never worked more hours. As we're sitting here, notifications from my Google Classroom are popping up of kids who are handing in work. And I'm going to go grade it when I hang up because I know that they're struggling and I want them to get feedback. We're trying. So give us a break. We miss the kids. We miss you so much. We miss normalcy. Just, we love everybody. And I don't know, show us a little bit of respect, please.
That's really kind of painful to listen to. I know you all have teachers like that in your district. I saw many of them this week, and just the emotions that they have gone through this year. It's allowed us to focus on the mental health of our staff in ways that probably were needed before, but now there's absolutely no doubt that this needs to be front and center in all of our districts. In District 34, Be Well 34 has become part of our culture. It started with just a basic wellness initiative that probably many of you have every once in a while. We'd have a wellness challenge once a year. Before I started, I believe it was just 1 week where HR would email out ideas for wellness. And then it evolved into a bingo game, wellness bingo. With some research, we surveyed staff and asked what they wanted more of. And we learned that previous wellness challenges had really focused on exercise and nutrition. And we heard from our feedback that they really wanted more activities, more focus on mental wellness in a whole lot of ways. So we created a 4-week wellness challenge that included weekly bingos with a whole lot of mental wellness and community connection activities, as well as exercise, nutrition. Again, I'm a big fan of kale. I promised this year that in our 4-week challenge, I would only have one challenge. It was really hard for me, but I did it. There was only one kale challenge. And we developed a newsletter. We have a weekly newsletter to share out the bingo card, but also to give tips on how to reach those activities. One of them is try a new recipe. So we put some recipes in the newsletter so that they could get an easy win on their bingo board. And we have a personnel committee. We are very committee driven in this district, and our personnel committee has a representative from every building, and they are our wellness challenge captains. So at each building, at the end of the week, staff submit their bingo boards to their wellness captain, and they do a random selection for a winner each week. And again, that's Heather Hopkins delivers the weekly prizes, and they were some really good ones. We had an Alexa, a weighted blanket, an ambient sound machine, and a yoga kit were the 4 prizes. And then if you got a coverall, you submitted to us at the district, and we pulled at the end of the entire 4 weeks, every coverall got an entry into the raffle, and that person got to pick their prize. It was either a NutriBullet or a smartwatch, a fitness watch. So that was, and this year it was easy to move that into a virtual situation. The creating connections activities were a little tougher because a lot of them used to be, give high fives, give 5 high fives to your colleagues, and you can't do that this year, but we adapted. Some of the challenges were social media related and have them tweet those out. So there was a lot of social media activity, and that built our overall social media presence. Over the past couple of years, more people have become, in our staff have become social media interested, if not out there often, but you see more activity from more people because of the Be Well Challenge. And this has become, after we gave a survey to staff after the first, revision of Be Well 34, there was a lot of feedback that we want to do this more often. And that would be kind of a big haul to do more challenges like this. But we have found ways now to really bring it year round and bring it into our culture. There really is a culture of wellness in District 34. And when we launched our new website, because it's a good idea. This is another tip to take away. You should really launch a new website at the beginning of a school year during a pandemic. I highly recommend that. It's so easy. There's nothing to worry about, really. It's just fine. It's fine. I'm fine. It's fine. But in doing so, in launching our new website last fall, we incorporated a page on our website, Be Well 34. And we have resources, Be Well 34 for students, for staff, and for families. And this is curated from resources that either we have generated ourselves, or we have an instructional coach for student services who is a school psychologist who works with our staff to support students in SEL. And so she was key in working on our web development process in finding the resources to provide for students and then sharing with staff how to use those in their everyday classroom work. When they identified students who needed some extra support, they could pull up Be Well 34 for students and find resources. And lo and behold, they see that Be Well 34 for staff is there, and there are resources there for them to pull on. One of them, we have one of our assistant principals is certified in leading meditation. She is amazing. Natalie Zellis is her name, and this is public. Please use these resources. But if you find the Monday morning mindfulness recordings, starting in, I think, April or May of last year, right after the shutdown, we asked Natalie to do Monday morning mindfulness Zoom sessions, and staff would Zoom in and start their week once a month with a meditation session, and we'd record it, and we have all of those recorded and available for staff to use whenever they need it. Also, part of our culture of wellness shows up in our bi-weekly staff newsletter. Again, we have a regular feature now. It grew out of the Be Well 34 newsletter and people wanted more. So now Healthy Happenings, a subsidiary of Be Well 34, is a feature in our staff newsletter that goes out every other week. It really is where we connect. And it is the key tool that I use and the absolute most fun that I have in school communications is writing this newsletter. I really do have a lot of fun with it. And it's kind of cool to hear staff talking about it. Whenever I go in the buildings, somebody mentions something about what they read in the staff newsletter. It's an opportunity for staff to share what they're doing in their classroom. We have a staff shares section in our newsletter that is submitted by teachers and staff throughout the district so that they can share what they're doing, and people pick up on that. We have 8 schools. So this is one way where we can connect those schools and share resources. If you see something great in staff shares that you think would work in your classroom, you can pull, who to contact, or, pull those ideas right from the newsletter. Of course, babies, we want to know, we want to see those cute babies and weddings. And, we have some staff who have published articles. So we'll put that in there as a staff share. But the best part is the raffle, and where not only do I have the most fun, but staff are the most engaged, because we ask for submissions to the raffle, like your most embarrassing work moment or your guilty pleasure, and randomly draw a winner from those submissions. But we always put out the responses so that people learn, hey, your guilty pleasure is The Bachelor, mine too. And you learn about your colleagues by participating and reading the newsletter. And this is the best. The newsletter that went out 2 weeks ago had a quiz. Which District 34 administrator are you? And my assistant created this. It's a BuzzFeed quiz to determine which cabinet member you are. And I will just take a few of the questions here. Let's see. My favorite color is green. I like the meerkat. Singing in the car. Yeah, I sing loud. My favorite holiday is Arbor Day. Yeah. That is definitely my favorite emoji. I swear a lot. So, oh yeah, swearing. That's the book I am. Aspire, explore, discover, connect. Again, we're bringing in our brand here. What do you do in your spare time? Running. Dream vacation. Door County is in Wisconsin. What's that sign say? I love Caddyshack. Love it. Yep. You are Kathy Kijijian. So I did get me when I took this quiz, and she only asked for a couple of answers to put in, so I didn't know all of them. I was thankful I was me and not our executive director of technology, Brian Engel. I apologize to those who had to be Brian. But then today's newsletter that I sent out just before I jumped on here shows which cabinet administrator all of our staff who submitted to this are. And I know that there are going to be conversations throughout the buildings. There was a lot of buildup. A lot of people were sending me emails. I'm you. What's wrong with this quiz? Why am I Brian Engel? Who's Eric Miller and why am I him? So not only did this allow us to, at a time when we really need to personalize the leadership team, to make us, let you know a little bit about us. But also you see other staff members who you're like. There's Brian Engel. I call out Brian. He is actually my work husband. We work together a lot and closely, and I love him. He is such a good sport, because there is something in every newsletter that makes fun of Brian Engel. And if there isn't, I get an email from someone saying, where's the weird picture of Brian? It's not going forward. Here we go. So that's Dr. Deli, our superintendent. Not too many people were him. Mary Garrity, our executive director of student services. Dr. Silverman is known for loving Batman. So we were excited to see who was Dr. Silverman. And most people were my friend, Heather Hopkins. And I was really excited about that. And it gives a little description. So even if you didn't get Heather, you go and see this and you get to read a little bit about all of us. So that is where I have a whole lot of fun in my district. This newsletter has become something that is really the touch point for all staff. They really do look forward to reading it. I do add a healthy dose of humor in every single issue. There's a staff member who will email me if it's not out by noon and say, I need a laugh, can you hurry up? And then I swear at her and everything's fine. But the newsletter is an example of how I have found my voice and how I have created the voice of the district. And HR uses this voice. And we have, because of the humor in the newsletter, because I use my voice and it's my genuine voice, I use it everywhere. My emails get opened. HR's emails get opened because they have kind of followed the voice that I use. And we have a lot of inside jokes that we use, and people look for those. They're like Easter eggs in the newsletter or in emails, and they're looking for those jokes and they're sharing them amongst themselves. But it's also listening. So I found my voice and I have made myself really accessible. And so I listen, whether it's in email, and I'm hearing what staff are saying, and I'm always responding. This selfie, when I was in the buildings, I'm going to talk a little bit about being in the buildings on Wednesday for our first full day, our next first day. She sought me out, ran up to me and said, "Kathy Kajijian, you answer me when I have a question." And it's, the little things like that. I respond on Twitter when someone tweets at me. Danae, I was in her classroom as well the other day. And I always respond to Twitter, and I tag her occasionally. I tag staff members on my personal Twitter account when I think of them. And it's because I've taken the stance to be a friend. I am the go-to source. I was the go-to source for vaccinations in our district. So I was sending out multiple emails a day and resources, and they know me. They know me as a friend. They know to reach out, and they feel like I'm a friend, whether they have ever met me. They know that I'm someone who cares about them, who may not have all the answers, but can direct them to the right place. So on Wednesday, I got to 7 of our 8 schools, and then made the 8th school on Thursday. And I was jumping around, and, I haven't been in the buildings a lot when we were in hybrid, because we were really watching the numbers in our buildings. And before that, we were remote. So I haven't been in the buildings, which is the best place to be, a lot. And it was really emotional, because I would walk in a building and, my gray hair, even when I have the mask on, people know who I am, because they recognize the hair. And at every building, I had someone come up to me and say, "Kathy, thank you. Thank you for all you have done, for sharing the wellness resources, for being the, cheerleader of Be Well 34, for getting me a vaccine." I walked into a middle school 6th grade classroom, and they were about to do a read aloud of a book that we are doing in every classroom in our district. We did it the first of the year, and we did it at our next first day. And he was just getting ready to read it. And I walk in, and he goes, "Kathy Kajijian is here, kids. This is Mrs. Kajijian, and she got me a vaccine." And he said, "Would you like to be our guest reader?" And I got to read "You Hold Me Up" to his 6th graders. And he sent some pictures of that I'm going to tweet out later today. But they have a direct line to me, and that's because we have created this culture of communication. I have, made it my job to be the friend of staff. And it's, sometimes it's a lot of work. It is stressful to be the support network for staff. I know you all will be talking about self-care of school PR at your summer seminar. So, we need that. But I've really reaped the rewards of being that friend for our district. And I am your friend too. So if you ever want to reach out to me with questions on Twitter, direct message me or find my email. Matt has it. I think it may be in your agenda, but please don't hesitate to reach out to me. We are best when we share our resources. K-12 PR chat, that's what it's all about. So I've got a couple minutes, so if you have any questions, I would love to hear from you. Anything you want to know about Heidi and what she does when she's your roommate?
Well, I think we know more than enough about Heidi. There was one question about the shop that you've created.
The swag shop.
The swag
Yeah.
shop. Can you talk a little bit about the process on that?
I can. So let me make sure I have the right email address of our swag shop. It is d34swag.com. So you're welcome to go there and see what's in there. And this was the brainchild of Josh Sauer, who our OK-SPRA friend, who is now, he followed me on the NSPRA board as Vice President of Communication, Technology, and Innovation. He works for Final Sight now, but on the side, he still supports our swag shop. He set this up. He branded it for us. When we send out swag, if we don't do a bulk order and send it to us and people can order and have it delivered to them, we have branded bags that it's sent out through. So I don't know if Josh is setting up other swag shops. I would bet he is, because he's got a couple of people who work with him on that. I'm glad to make a connection, and you can reach out to Josh if you know him, or I would make a connection. It's been really great. People have liked having that always there. We've added new things. We had a green sweatshirt for St. Patrick's Day. So that's how that, and it was really easy for me. I didn't really have to do anything. I turned it over to Josh.
Kathy, did you have to get permission from like cabinet or leadership with all this, like when you first initiated the idea?
Of which?
Of this whole initiative, like the newsletter and then all the other ideas that came with it and all of that. And did your district attorney have any issues with it as well?
I can't think of any area where I had to check with the attorney. I am on the executive leadership team. I'm a member of cabinet. So we have now 3 times a week cabinet meetings, but it used to be weekly cabinet meetings. And, part of my sharing is, here's what we're doing. HR knew all about it. So it was our collaborative effort. So it was just part of the standard cabinet procedures that they were informed about what was happening and had input on it, and gave approval. And if there was anything that required legal, I would have heard about it from our business guy, and he would have directed me to do that. But there weren't any items in there. And speaking of cabinet, I do need to hop off because my Zoom is the host of our virtual cabinet. So again, please reach out to me. Enjoy your presentation from Aptigee. I love their school CEO publication. So way to go, Aptigee, on that. And I hope to hear from you guys.
Thank you so much, Kathy. We appreciate you being here, especially transitioning to a new learning model and everything you have going on. We really appreciate it.
All right. Be well, everyone.
All right. Well, that was great. We really, like I said, just having her there to share her resources. And if you guys do have additional questions, we will provide her email address. Like I said, you should follow her on Twitter, and the K-12 PR chat is extremely valuable. It's kind of how I got started with connecting with NSPRA across, with leaders across the country and building relationships. So look into the K-12 PR chat and reach out to Kathy. She's a great resource. And I think it's a good transition into our next presentation. Kathy, talked so much about culture and how you get that culture and how important it is. And next we're going to hear about how to get the right people in to create that culture. And it's, as we all know, it's such an important part of our jobs, our districts, our communities, is having the right teachers, the right staff in place to build the proper culture to succeed and give students what they need. So I'm going to transition over to the next presentation. And before I do, I did want to give a special shout out to Aptigee, because they've really gone above and beyond with us. They're a new partner for ASPRA, and we're really excited to have them. They're going to be really involved with the summer conference, and they moved some things around to be able to present there and just share valuable content rather than just be a vendor there. And Don and I have met with them multiple times and have just been really impressed with the content they have. Extremely valuable content to for us and for our membership. So it was important to bring them in as more than just a vendor or a sponsor, but to really look into their presentations that they have, because we both thought that they were extremely valuable. So we are grateful to Apogee, and we have Mark and Tyler with us today, and I'm going to pass it over to Mark to introduce Tyler. But before I do that, I will just share the brief session description for everyone. So they're going to talk about what districts miss in attracting talent. We know attracting and retaining talent is a crucial challenge for many districts, yet we found there are key misconceptions. Based on the largest survey of millennial teachers, we will highlight what your prospective staff is actually looking for and share private sector best practices on how to stand out. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mark and Tyler, and thank you guys for being here. We appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Matt and Don and everybody for having us. A lot of the research and things, I'm Mark, by the way, but a lot of the research that we'll talk through today is actually from School CEO. So I appreciate that shout out from Kathy as well before she dropped off. But we'll try to kind of walk you guys through a few things here, and then obviously allow some time for questions at the end. Feel free to drop them in the chat as we go through things. But here at Apogee, over the last year, we've met with quite a few of the SPRA organizations, state to state, and really tried to learn a little bit more about some of the challenges that you guys are facing within your districts. Obviously, the last 12 months have been unlike no other. But even outside of that, we know that there's some other unique challenges. And I'm really excited to chat with you guys today and to have Tyler Vosser here with me. So Tyler is our VP of People here at Apogee. Tyler runs our entire people team and has helped Apogee grow as a company as we've scaled from 50 employees in 2018 to almost 200 full-time employees now in 2021. Tyler has a really pretty interesting background. He actually comes from a marketing background, and he's had a lot of different roles in marketing. One of my personal favorites is that he was the VP of marketing at Sticker Mule. I don't know if anyone has ever heard of Sticker Mule, but kind of a cool sticker company. Yeah, there you go, Tyler.
Yeah, I like the thumbs up from Matt. So actually what Kathy said about HR and PR being best friends, I'm not a PR guy, but I'm in marketing. And so it makes me feel better about my career choice of going from marketing to hiring people, right? So when she said that, I was like, okay, maybe I've been able to marry those two things. So yeah.
Yeah, so that's exactly what I was about to say, right? Like two of those skill sets that he's really been able to marry here. And I'm really excited to have him kind of walk you guys through some of these things. Outside of Tyler's just personal experience and background, right? We're drawing on a lot of that research from School CEO. So this would be the latest copy here. I'm kind of curious, I guess, like hands up, maybe if you've heard of it or seen it before in your inboxes. Yeah, okay, cool. So a couple of hands there, that's great. So School CEO, as some of you guys already know, is the first magazine, right, specifically geared towards school marketing. So what we learned was that there's a lot of content out there around school communication, district leadership, right? But there was this void when it came to school marketing a few years ago. And so we've really tried to step in and fill that void with valuable research that you guys can then take and apply. So there's a lot of original research there. SchoolCEO.com is a great place to visit as well as the hard copies there that are going to come out quarterly. Obviously today, we're going to dig in a little bit to, recruiting talent, right? And how to do that and what some of those things are that school leaders miss. Okay. So one of the things that we've learned over the last few years, right? Really two things. One of them would be in talking with school leaders, we've actually met with close to 6,000 school administrators. And we've learned that role has really transitioned or changed, and that in many ways now, a school district is being run a lot like a business, right? Thus the marketing, right? So school leaders are having to recruit talent, right? Which obviously we'll talk about today. You're having to change the way that you communicate with families, change the way that you think about marketing and branding, all through this lens of now the way a private sector business would, because of the competition that exists in education. Okay. Tyler, you want to talk a little bit about kind of teachers, shopping online and lead there?
Absolutely. Yeah, and we don't mean they're shopping on Amazon, although they probably are doing that as well. What we really mean is just so much of the decision-making process that all of us make, right? Whether we're changing jobs or buying a house or, buying sunscreen, right? All of that, almost all of that is happening online, right? Things have changed so much in the last 15 or 20 years. And so the example I like to give here is when I moved from New York City to Little Rock, Arkansas, where Apogee is based, about 5 years ago. Actually, this week was 5 years that we bought the house. We did not see the house until the night before we signed the papers. So you can question my judgment later, but it's worked out. It's a great house. But all of our process was actually done online, right? We were looking on Zillow, we were checking things out, and my wife and I, we looked probably at 15 or 20 houses a night. We didn't like anything, and then we found the one, right? And so that's when we reached out to a real estate agent and actually asked for help. So, but that's very different than in the past, right? Where you might have, found a real estate agent, had that relationship, gone through that discovery process with that person, and then they start showing you houses, right? Some of that still happens, but a lot of the things that we used to take place, as part of the process are actually just kind of you and your computer making those decisions. And so one of the things that we've seen, and we'll talk about this in the results of the survey, is teachers are doing the same thing, right? When they're trying to figure out where they're going to work, a lot of times they're making those decisions and doing that discovery well before they ever talk to anyone, right? And that creates a unique problem and challenge and opportunity if you handle it the right way. Cool. All right, so we'll talk about two things. The first part, Mark's going to lead and really talking through school CEO and that issue that we released a couple of years ago, right? But it was pre-COVID, so I think there's a lot of insights there actually that you can draw from. The second part, I'll talk more about how to attract great talent based on those results and based on things that we've seen and best practices in the private sector and in other areas as well. All right. Cool. So part one, Mark, you want to pick up here?
Yeah, we'll dive in. So what are millennial teachers or millennial staff looking for? Right. So like Tyler said, this was actually done in 2019, so predates COVID, right? But we actually conducted the largest study ever of millennial teachers. Okay. So we actually reached out to 30,000 millennial teachers, right? And actually got responses from 1,000 or over 1,000 actually, which is a statistically significant sample size. Right. And if you want to skip to the next slide, Tyler, we'll talk through some of the findings there. So some of the findings, right? So, we asked the question, right? Like my decision of where to work was largely based on salary and benefits. And, you might expect that 100% of people would say that was the biggest driver or what led them to their career. But in fact, we found that it was only important to about 50%, right, of respondents. Okay. And a quarter of those, it was a big part of their decision. Okay. So that then raises the question, right? So if it's not salary and benefits, right, what is the most important thing? And just maybe piggybacking here off of Kathy's presentation, right? School culture ranked at the top of that, right? Obviously you could select multiple things here, but 72% said school culture, right? That was then followed by location, school leadership, right? And then greater flexibility in curriculum and teaching, which she also hit on just a little bit. Okay. The interesting thing about, these top 4 responses here is that we can actually control or influence 3 of them, right? Tyler, you want to talk a little bit about location and maybe how, well, we can't change our physical location. There are some things we can do there.
Sure, yeah, and I'll stop sharing kind of back and forth so you're not looking at it just a slide deck the whole time. So location is obviously not something you can change at all or easily, right? Like Apogee could pick everything up and move, but we're not going to if you're a school district. That's not going to happen, right? So we saw this as kind of a disadvantage for a long time. When you think about the startup space, right? High growth tech companies, you typically think of San Francisco or New York City or Austin, Texas, right? Or maybe Seattle. But you don't think about Little Rock, Arkansas. Or if you do, like, come talk to me and I want to know who you know. But this was a challenge for us, right? It's like, well, how are we going to compete when we're not in the right location, right? But we actually found a way of kind of spinning that and really reframing it, which is we can offer something that you can't get for hundreds and hundreds of miles in our radius, right? So where really talented people might have left to San Francisco or New York because they didn't have those opportunities here, now we have that opportunity, right? And we can be one of the few options to attract those talented people too. So we really just started talking about as instead of being worried about how we're going to get enough talent, we can become that premier option for the talent that wants to be part of a high growth startup, that wants to be involved in a tech company, that wants to have that impact in education, right? So that has really made a huge difference, not just for our own psychology of thinking about how we're going to view ourselves, but also in being able to talk about our unique messaging with candidates, with other people around the state. And we've actually moved a lot of people that were from Arkansas and left and have come back, right? Because they see this opportunity. Cool. All right, I'll share my screen again.
Yeah. So the next thing that we asked was how teachers found out about their job, right? Again, as we might expect here, right? At the top there, right, was they talked to somebody at the district or they heard about it from someone at the district. What was really interesting about this, if you look towards the bottom of that list, right, is probably where a lot of people traditionally think that people are hearing about jobs, which is, you know, colleges, career fairs, right, things like that. When in reality, right, most of this is going to be happening online. Okay? So you see district website, online job board, right, there at the top of that ranking as well, in addition to just that conversation that someone had. So once they hear, right, about that job, we then looked at like how they're researching, right, the district, okay? And so what we found here, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with Glassdoor, it's pretty popular like in the private sector, right, where you can do reviews, but only 10%, right, were using Glassdoor, okay? Then you think about, you know, they looked at social media posts, right? They reached out to current employees, things like that. But the really, like, you guys can read this obviously, but the really interesting thing here was that you'll see 81%, right, actually looked at the school district's website once they heard about the job. And that's where they went to do the research. Of that 81%, 44% of that happened through a mobile device, right? People weren't necessarily sitting down at the computer to go to the school website. I mean, instead, that was all happening on mobile. So from there, we basically looked at career information that was available on school websites, obviously, right? So we took 1,000 district websites, right? And what we found was that, you know, I think it was a good thing that 82% had job postings, but that was all they had, right? It was just a simple basic job posting. And only 8%, right, actually had what we would call a careers page, okay? And I think it's important here probably to distinguish what a careers page is. Tyler's going to get into this a little bit more, right? But it's not just a listing of jobs, right? But it's a page specific to your site that's making that argument around the culture for you, right? Showing a teacher why they should apply, right? Or why they should come to your district. Okay. So then the final piece here that I'll share with you guys is then, you know, we asked the question, you know, how much would you agree with the following statement? You know, my school's online presence attracted me to the position. Okay. And overwhelmingly there, right, 85%? Sorry, I can hardly see it, said that it had a strong influence on them. So are y'all with me here on like the disconnect that's occurring? Right? People are going online, they're doing their research there, right? But then when they get there, there's this lack of information, right, that exists. So Tyler, you want to kind of take it from here and kind of build on this and talk about what schools can.
Yeah, just to connect my earlier analogy about buying a home, right? It's like if you're doing all that research, but every time you're getting to the house, you don't like what you see, right? That's a problem, right? If the goal of Zillow is to sell houses and what you're seeing there is not attractive, that's not good, right? Then you either have to go find a different solution, or you have to keep searching until you find one that you do like, which is exactly what happened in my case, right? So if they're researching you online, they're getting there, they're looking through the website, but they're not liking what they're seeing, right? That's what we really want to focus here on this second section here. So also quick shout out. I saw Aaron Helm asked, like, are the slides going to be available? Yes. Also, if you want to put comments in the chat, that makes me super happy. So, right, like this is the COVID era. So head nodding is encouraged, hands raised, unmuting, very good things. So feel free to like jump in. I have a ridiculous title, VP of People. What does that mean, right? It means I enjoy people and like talking a lot. So you will not offend me at all. In fact, you'll probably be my new best friend if you say like unmute and say like, Tyler, what are you talking about? Let's argue about this, right? That would be a very good thing. So let's have that conversation, okay? Cool. So let's talk about how to attract great talent. This is what my team thinks about all the time. This for us is one of the hardest parts of running a business, right? And it's the same thing across the board, right? In the private sector, in education, and elsewhere. Hiring great people is such a huge part of being successful, getting that right culture, right? Everything that Kathy mentioned earlier. So we're going to use the word talent. You can call it teachers, you can call it staff. The study that Mark just went through was really focused on teachers, right? But a lot of what we'll talk about obviously applies to teachers, but there's other type of staff members that you also are hiring. And what we'll talk about is really applicable to all of them, right? So we use the word talent pretty consistently, but you can think about staff, teachers, whatever works for you. But just a quick kind of clarification on that as we go. Okay, cool. So how do we fix it, right? How do we attract great talent? So we're going to talk through three things here. So how do you stand out with a unique message? How do you make the invisible visible? And actually, I think Kathy did a really good job of this point. So we'll look at that in a little bit. And then how do you create a hiring experience? And she talked about that a little bit as well. So yeah, great. Quick question from Michelle. Do we know of any school districts that have great websites for recruiting and job postings? We could probably find some. I do know some private sector companies that I think you should really look at and would be great examples. But yeah, and maybe that's something, you know, in your forums, right? Figure out what are those schools that have the best job descriptions, or those schools that have the best career sites. Cool. So the first point here is really like, how do you stand out with a unique message? And this is really key for us. I'm going to talk about this really for quite a bit, because this is the most important thing. And it's something that takes time, right? Maybe you already have this. Maybe you're still tweaking it. Maybe you're still yet to discover it. Apogee, we've been around for more than 6 years now, but I would say it probably took us 2 or 3 years to really figure out what was our unique message going to be when talking to candidates, when we're talking to new hires or to people that are interested about us but don't really know much. What are we actually telling them other than we're a company and we have jobs, right? Every company can say that, but what was it that we were going to use to stand out? So I wanted to use the example of Nike here. Everyone knows Nike, right? There's no way anyone on this call doesn't know Nike. Probably the most successful brand in the world, right? One of the amazing things about Nike, right, is their unique message is not that we have the best shoes. It's that you can do it, right? You can accomplish your goals. You can be at the top of your game. Whatever you want to set out and accomplish, like, this is what you need to get that done, right? Like, I think about Michael Jordan. I think about, like, just seeing this logo makes me want to go for a run, and I'm not a runner like Kathy. So but it inspires something, right? It like makes you feel a certain way. And that is really the power of a brand. But if we took 1,000 pairs of shoes and we took off the logos, right? Chances are the majority of us, definitely me, I would have no idea the difference between the different shoes, right? But the power of a brand really is the way that it makes you feel, and like going out and buying that shoe is different because of the way that you feel about that logo, right? And this is really cool because what a brand allows you to do is do more than just do one thing, right? So Nike obviously sells shoes, but they sell a lot of other things. And if they wanted to, they could open a hotel chain. I don't know that they're going to do that anytime soon, but if they did, right, you can kind of imagine what that would be like. Right? Like you could walk into the lobby, there's like this giant poster of Michael Jordan over here and like other athletes, right, from different sports around the room. You can almost even imagine like the key card that they would give you to get into your room, right? And some of the like cool, unique things that Nike would have in a hotel that a brand like Hilton wouldn't, right? And that's the power of a brand, right? It really allows you to have that unique message and accomplish more than just the thing itself, right? So if with schools, obviously educating is a huge piece of it, but also is hiring talent, right? So where your brand can really carry you is if you build a strong brand, right? It can carry you a lot of places. On the flip side of that, right, if Hilton, I have nothing against Hilton, but if Hilton decided that they were going to build a shoe and start selling shoes, I have no idea what that would look like, right? Their brand to me maybe just isn't strong enough, or there's not a unique message that is powerful enough to allow them to pivot into something completely unrelated to what they do, right? Do you see the importance there of having a strong brand versus just having a corporate identity? Yeah. So the goal is to build that identity, right? And that brand. So you can think about it either way, brand or identity. But when someone thinks about your school district, what is it that they identify with, right? And we'll talk about this a little bit with job descriptions in a bit, right? But there are a lot of places where things look exactly the same, right? It's a bunch of pairs of shoes, but there's a difference because of the way people have experienced that in the past, or that specific message, or the way that they feel about that brand. All right. All right, so getting more into talent, right? So what top talent expects. And so as Mark talked through the presentation, right, school culture is a big part of it. Good leadership. Location is one of them, right? But also flexibility in teaching, right? So from the education sector, specifically with teachers, we know that those are the things that they expect, or the things that are most important to them when making a decision. And then there's what you can uniquely provide. And this is really where you start to get into building that brand and that unique message, is that you don't have to have everything that top talent expects exactly the way that you think that they want it, right? There are certain things that you will be better at, and there will be certain things that you're still working on improving. It's definitely true of Apogee, right? We love it here. Mark and I are very happy. It's been a great experience. There are things we could get better at, but what we've really focused on are our strengths, right? And so what you end up with is your core message. And I'll show you our careers page in a minute, but one of the really unique things about the way that we laid out our careers page, specifically our careers video, was instead of making it the way that everybody else did, we really wanted to figure out what was our unique message. And so at the time, I remember a lot of us that were working on the video, we went out and we found the best videos we could find online. And what we found is they all said exactly the same thing. Didn't matter if they were in Barcelona or Berkeley or somewhere else, right? They all said, it's fun here, there's free food, and you'll have family. We're like, oh, that's awesome. We have all those things too, right? It's a startup. There's lots of free food. So like, that's great. We're going to make that. But what we actually found is, why would we do that? We're going to sound exactly like everyone else. And how do you make a decision when everybody's saying the same thing, right? If you know you get family, free food, and fun everywhere, the only thing that really matters might be location, right? Because they don't have an idea of what it's actually like on the inside if everything looks the same. So what we actually focused on, and this is going to sound a little bit crazy, is how hard it is to work here, right? We decided, let's talk about the difficulties. Let's talk about the bad days and how stressful it can be at times and how much is expected of you and how much you're going to grow. And that has worked really, really well for us, right? There are times where it hurts us, right? There are people that say, wow, I don't want to work there. And part of us goes, that's okay, right? Like, we're trying to stand out with a particular message, and we want the people that are excited about building something together, and that they see something that's difficult as something that's fun and something that's going to help them grow. Right? So any questions on that so far? So feel free to unmute, feel free to yell at me. I really encourage that. So what are your thoughts on this so far? Is there anything that, and maybe someone has like gone through this process recently where you're like, we've really nailed our core message in the last couple of years, and this is working for us? And if not, that's okay. I'll keep going. All right, cool. Oh, Zachary, do you have a question?
I was just going to say, it's a great conversation. It's one we're trying to work through right now. We're a university town, but also that old school culture versus a younger population coming in and filling for retirees. And so there's this whole bridge of, you know, upcoming community, outdoor living type things versus people who don't want anything to change. And so our team's really going through that process of trying to evaluate how do we bring in more talent without alienating this talent that's already here.
Interesting. Yeah, that's very cool. I grew up in a resort community in Colorado, so maybe I'll have to ping you later and talk about that. I'd be very curious to know what you guys are thinking. Yeah. Huh.
Sure.
That's cool.
Excuse me, could I ask a follow-up to that, Zach? When you say our team's working through that, who's on that team? What positions do you have in the room?
Yeah, it's me and HR who are really working through that. And then we're trying to pull in school site administration, those who have grown up here, but then also those that are newer administrators who had experience elsewhere. So we're also trying to like bridge the relationships there through that process.
It's definitely a process, right? And I don't know that it ever really ends. There's just certain moments where you can see the work was done, right? But that should be a conversation that continues to happen for sure. Yeah. Michelle?
I was just going to say, one thing I always struggle with in thinking about the brand and what's uniquely us or that kind of question is that we have 21 schools who all want to be unique or are actually unique. So, but yet we're a district. So trying to figure out, the core message, is it by the district? Is it by the school? If you're a teacher, are you applying to a school? I just always have trouble sorting all that out. And it seems so overwhelming when you're talking about so many sites, and we have districts that are bigger than ours and smaller, but how to balance that all out.
That's a good question. I guess I'll venture my kind of guess at like how we think about that. So like, it's obviously different, right, in a private company, but we have our core message as a company, but we have individual like teams and departments as well, right? And I would say we have a core, like a common culture around the whole company, and that's true as much as we can, right, across every single team. But each team also has certain things that's most important to them, or the things that they emphasize or talk about, or the way that that leader really wants that team to run. But it's not different than that core message. It's almost just more of like a specific application of it, or highlighting a piece of that in a different way, right? So where one team might, think more about the quality of like their work and their conversations, another one is focused more on like the process and the communication, right? But they're both focusing on high performance, right? So for us, high performance and thoughtfulness are those two core values. And it took us a really long time to get to those two words, right? Which sounds ridiculous, but like there's beauty in simplicity, right? It takes a lot of work to make something simple and straightforward. Great comments. Yeah, keep these going. So part 2, I want to talk about making the invisible visible. And as Kathy was talking, I actually saw a lot of her presentation was this, right? If you've ever joined a job for the first time, right, you basically have no idea what you're joining until you get into it. And that is a problem, right? That's a problem, especially if people are looking online and doing all of their research there before they make their decision or before they talk to anyone, right? Like oftentimes, I think if I could talk to someone about Apogee, I could get them pulled in, but a lot of times they're making those decisions online before I ever get a chance to talk to them, right? And that's why your online presence is so important. So when I say make the invisible visible, part of that is your culture, both for schools and the district, right? But also part of that is just what experience is and what it feels like to work there, right? So I'm going to share our careers page real quickly here. And we're still working on this, right? So like we're remaking our video right now. The video that we've had up here has been there for about 3 years. Watch it later. Like it's a little edgy, right? It's like, this is going to be tough. And so we really like that though. That's like something we've focused on. It may not work for you, right? It probably should be different, right? It's something that should be unique to you. So the first thing I want to point out is that there's a video here, right? But the next thing is not the job postings. The next thing is actually, we got this last year right before COVID hit. It was really surprising because we did not ask for it. It just came to us. So we wanted to highlight this, right? This was something, we're the only company in Arkansas to get this award. And then maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, Mark, we got it again for the second time. So that's new. But we put our culture is the first thing to see after that video, right? So talking again about thoughtfulness and high performance and how we define those things. So it's not 50 values out there, right? Instead, it's only 2, and we're talking specifically about what those things are. And this is something that comes up over and over again in interviews, in the application process, and also even in like the NEO or the new employee onboarding that we have. We also talk about who we serve, right? We work with schools. We're really fortunate to do that. And we feel like that's something that we can also uniquely provide. There are many, many tech companies, but most of them don't work with schools, right? That's something that's unique to us and we're very proud of. We also are clear about what we expect from people, right? Our culture book, which is super cool, we've had that for a few years. It took a long time to get to that as well. We didn't put everything from our culture book on our website, but we picked the 4 that we felt like were most important for someone that was from the outside looking in. And so that's why we specifically talk about growth mindset, intensity, excellence, and outcomes over ego. And all of these things are echoed in that video, right? It seems pretty intense. We talk a lot about how hard it is to get over your ego to be effective at work. We also talk about growing and how important it is to have a mindset, and educators are great at this, right? This idea of growth mindset. And so that's something we've really tried to adopt. And then also this idea of excellence, right? To be effective, you have to be excellent in your role, and you have to actually execute on the things, right? And then we get into open positions, right? But the point is, those are not the primary things, right? We're not just saying there's a bunch of jobs here. We're trying to show them some other things as well. And then on the very bottom of the page, we're trying to give a real life look in what it's like to work here, right? And so some of these photos are candid, some of them are a little bit staged, but for the most part, like this is a staff meeting picture here. These are just pictures that we have of people that have been really great here and that we want to highlight, right? So I would say this is a really maybe easy one, right? You probably already have pictures, and just giving people that literal visual impression of what it's like to work there can be so helpful. And so this is something we do update occasionally, right? But that has really helped people be like, wow, people look so happy here. And a last comment on that, even if you don't have a careers page, which obviously I'm advocating for, Instagram can be a huge help here, right? I hear probably out of every 10 interviews, 6 people say, hey, I saw your Instagram. People look so happy there. Like, yeah, absolutely, right? And that gives us a chance not only to talk about why they are happy, but also about how difficult and challenging it can be to work here, but people are still having fun and they're still enjoying that experience, right? So there's a lot of things like that that we're able to highlight because they're more visible and people don't have to guess, right? And what I've found, at least in my career, is that you really don't know what it's like to work somewhere until you're 6 months in. And so to the degree that you can make that more visible and make it easier for people to see exactly what it is like to work there and what it feels like to work there, I think that feeling word is really key. That's really what you're trying to go for, right? Photos help a lot with that. Videos help a lot with that. The videos that Kathy showed, right? Like that's pretty impactful. That feels different to me than other schools I've seen. And that's really exciting.
Cool. Hey, Tyler, can I jump in with a question?
Yeah.
So I noticed on one of your stat slides back there where teachers find the jobs, social media was at the very bottom. So I'm guessing that is a lot of times where we think that, we have to do social media ads. That's where everyone's at. But would you say it's more like maybe don't pay for the ads and maybe just worry about the content that is on your platforms and people will see you that way?
Yeah, I mean, the professional answer is it depends. But yeah, I would say most of the time social media is like kind of 2 or 3 steps into the buying process, right? Or into that decision-making process, not the first step, right? And we have run social media ads in the past, right? And part of that was like, we just need people to know that we're here. So it depends where you are in that phase, right? But I do think you should use social media to really focus on that content and the people that are interested and curious that they're starting to dive deeper into and they're liking what they're seeing, right? And
one thing that go ahead, Tyler, sorry.
Go ahead, Mark.
I was just gonna say one thing that I'll add there too is like not every social media is going to be equal in this regard either, right? So like Tyler mentioned Instagram specifically, right? He didn't mention Facebook or Twitter. We have Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, so on and so forth. But like, there's a reason. You want to talk a little bit about that, Tyler? Kind of like who's on what
we basically see Instagram as a talent-focused social media platform, right? Whereas Facebook or Twitter, we're using that more as like a business, right? Like we're sharing school CEO articles, like school CEOs on Twitter, right? We have a podcast. There's these different things out there, but that's more for the business side, right? So I think you can make that distinction of this platform. The primary audience is this group, right? And of course, there are other groups that are going to see our Instagram, right? You guys can go check out our Instagram. It might not be for you, right? Because you're in Arizona, but there are those kind of opportunities to say like, what is that content going to be? What should it be focused on? And who is that audience? And like Mark's saying, it can be different between Twitter and Instagram. I don't think they conflict. They're just different focuses. Yeah. And one thing to note on career pages in that study, right? We saw that only 8% of school districts have a dedicated careers page, something that specifically makes the case for why you should work there. So just by having a case, just by having a page about your careers and the opportunity, you're already standing out, right? It means you're way ahead of the game, right? And then from there, what is that unique message? What is that core message of what you can uniquely provide? And how do you make that crystal clear in a way that people from the outside looking in can get a really good feel for what it's like to work there? All right. So the other thing I want to talk about, and this seems super boring, right?
Go ahead,
Job
Michelle.
descriptions.
I'll interrupt Tyler, Michelle, for you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I was just thinking about what you just said about Instagram being talent oriented and Facebook or Twitter being what you do for like the CEO thing. Is that because you decided that is how you were going to use those platforms, or is there some reason that people tend to go to Instagram for something and Facebook for something and Twitter for something?
Great question. I think there's two things. So one, yes, that is what we decided. But two, Instagram is just so visual that there's plenty of Instagram accounts that do this. I don't judge them too much, but it's kind of boring, right? Like it's like a quote of the day or something like that. That's fine, but there's so much of that there, and it just kind of loses that human touch. And I feel like Instagram is uniquely suited to capture photos, right? Like there's just a different kind of engagement there with people than there is on Twitter or Facebook, right? And a lot of that's just because it's so visually focused. So it's both what we decided, but also I honestly think it's the best platform to focus on talent, right? Anything that needs to be visual and is hard to communicate in words, Instagram is great for. Cool. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate the interruption. So cool. So job descriptions sounds super boring. I actually think this is one of the least appreciated things that you can do to hire people. And going back to my Nike example about 1,000 pairs of shoes, right? If you look out on the internet about jobs, it's basically the same thing with a bunch of titles, right? So you have, music teacher, music teacher, music teacher. But a lot of times you won't even find a job description. It's literally just the title. Right? And that's where people then are going to the website. They're going through that research process, but there's a huge opportunity in your job descriptions, not to list 50 things about what they need to do, right? Lift 25 pounds, have X number of years of experience, et cetera, but to give them a feel to write out what it's like to work there, right? And not necessarily just what the requirements are, right? What do you expect of people? What does a good performer look like in this role? What does a great performer look like in this role? What is the impact of the role, right? The more you can kind of write that out and give people that feel for what it's going to be like to be in this role and what it's going to be like to be successful and what the impact is, the better, right? And a lot of times when we talk about this, right, people are like, well, how do you do that, right? Like, I don't know the position, like who's going to write that? And I know that's a really practical question. My encouragement to you is like Kathy said, PR and HR should be best friends, but also talk to the people that are in those roles. So in my job, I don't let our engineers write their job descriptions, right? But I talk to them all the time, right? I don't let our client success team write the job descriptions, but I know them and I talk to them. And so I kind of take that and I just usually on a Saturday night, late at night when I have my creative juices flowing, just crank out a bunch of paragraphs, right? Of like what it takes to be successful in this role. What are those intangibles that are not years of experience, but things that really make a difference, right? Like being highly coachable, being someone that's curious and wants to learn. Those are things that really matter here, right? For the engineers, we actually want people that are interested in code, of course, but also culture. There's a huge difference for us in interviews between the engineers that just want to know what the code is and the engineers that want to know how we work and what it feels like to work there, right? So we call that out in our job descriptions and say, you need to have an interest in code and culture, right? So if this is something that's interesting to you, right, I'd really encourage you, one, just start writing, right? What are the things that you think it takes to be successful in these jobs? But also talk to the people that are in them now, especially the people that have been there for a while and have been very successful and are good culture champions, right? Talk to those people as well and start kind of figuring out how do you take those invisible things about them and put it onto paper. All right. Any questions on job descriptions? There are some really good examples out there, and we'll try to find some of them and share them later, right? I've seen companies where they actually talk about like the team members that you might be working with, right? And like that's a really cool way of having that feel. You can't always do that because of different regulations and whatnot, but there are little things, right? What do you want to know when you join a job? Is my manager going to be helpful, right? Is the person I report to going to be nice? Do they care about my growth, right? And going back to the survey, right? How flexible are they going to be with like letting me teach in my own way and in my own voice, right? Can you call those things out in a job description? if they're true, you should absolutely do that. All right.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So especially with your experience working in both marketing and HR, I work really closely with our HR team, and at the same time, they're a very big department and they like to do things their way. Do you have any suggestions on how to kind of pitch to them the value of involving the communications director in things like job descriptions?
Yeah. It's a tough one, right? It depends on your team and the personalities and all of that. I think there's a way of involving them and saying like, our job is to help this school be successful, right? To help the district be successful. And I want to be there to support you, right? Like this weird guy, Tyler from Arkansas, told me that we need to take the invisible things and make them visible, right? Like as you're in these interviews, wouldn't it be nice to have interview after interview after interview with people that are really excited, engaged, and interested in what we're doing and already have a really good feel for what we're looking for, right? And like, so there is some kind of cross section there, which is like their job is to hire the best people and to get people into a place. And your job is, I can help you do that, right? I can help you do that, but here are some of the things I need from you. And can we experiment a little bit, right? Can we have a job description that has a couple of paragraphs, right? Like don't start off with a crazy job description, but how can we talk about our culture in the individual job description, even if it's already on the careers page, right? We still talk about our culture in every job description, even though we have a careers site. And that's because it goes out to Indeed or ZipRecruiter and all these other places. And we still want people to have a feel for that. Does that help, Don?
It does. That's great. Thank you so much.
I think in practice, it's going to be way harder than what I just told you, right? So it's going to be maybe not a battle. Hopefully you don't see it that way, but an exercise in patience. And like, I would get them interested in the philosophy of it, right? And we can share some of these sites out there, like ours and others, that you're like, oh, like this is weird, but at least I know kind of where the boundaries are and what's possible. All right, and then we'll do a Q&A here at the end if we have some time, and we can definitely talk more about that. So the last thing here is creating a hiring experience. What I mean by this is from the very first touch point, right? Whether that's them finding your website or hearing about the position from someone that works at the district or that used to work there, all the way to their first day and even those first weeks, right? So when we think about the hiring experience, it's not just the interview process and it's not just their first day. It's everything and then the edges of that as well, all right? So the first thing I have here is over communicate. So something that I did when we came in is I have no idea about HR, right? So this is like a very dangerous position to put me in, but I thought in marketing, your job is to contact your clients regularly, right? And at Sticker Mule, we send out a weekly email. So my question was, why can't we contact every candidate every week to let them know where they are in the process, right? Even if there's not an update, we can say, hey, we don't have an update, but we're thinking of you, right? We haven't forgotten you. We're not perfect at this, but it's something that we've really tried. And so we try to do Friday updates with everybody that's in the process, right? That's really helpful. And obviously in hiring, you reject more people than you hire. That's just how it works. But people are like, wow, like, thank you for letting me know, right? I really appreciate the update, even though, you know, a lot of times it doesn't work out in the end, that at least is a different experience for them than what they've had other places. The second thing I have here is involve culture champions. And kind of like Don's question, this might be a little bit tricky. A lot of times in interviews in private sector and in schools, right, you have the subject matter expert that's doing the interview. That's important, but I don't think that's the only person that should be asking the questions. You want to involve those people that are very engaged and carrying your culture and really embody like what you wish everyone would be like, right? So Kathy would be one of those people, right? Like just very energetic and like makes you feel a certain way about the interview process. And injecting those people into the interview process can be really helpful. Not just because they might ask questions that help identify, is this person going to be a culture fit? But the other person, the candidate themselves can ask questions to that person in a different way, right? If they're a math teacher, they're probably happy, like they're good with math, right? They don't want to change what they're teaching, but they want to know what it's going to feel like and what's that experience. And again, going back to the invisible visible, they're going to want to ask questions. And sometimes the best person to answer that is not someone that's teaching in that exact role, right? So if that's possible, I really encourage you to do that, or have a second touch point that's not even an interview, and almost like a buddy system or something, like midway through the process, give them an opportunity to talk with someone else that's not invested in their interview process and can't make a decision, right? That kind of third party, if you trust them. The middle one here says, find out what matters to them. And what I mean by this is just like we did that survey, right? I think that is accurate, but each person is unique, right? So what is it that's really important to them? When they say they want to have their own voice and have flexibility in what they teach, what do they mean, right? Did they have a bad experience? Or they just want someone that they can trust? Or are they specifically looking to, adopt a particular curriculum, right? So like, if you can find those things out in the interview process, one, it's really helpful for them to say, yes, we can provide that, or no, we can't provide all of that, but here's what we can do. And that just kind of honest and transparent discussion goes a really long way with candidates. The last couple here, so invest in the offer experience. So one thing that we've started in the last few years is when we offer someone, we don't just give them the details, here's the salary, the start date, etc. We tell them what we like about them, why we're hiring them, but also about the challenge, right? So we basically say, like if I were having this conversation with Don, right, I would tell Don, like, Don, really enjoyed getting to know you over these last few weeks as we've had these interviews. Like, we're hiring you because we see you as someone that's very thoughtful and high performing, and I would add other specifics. And we know that interviews can be really challenging, right? Because you're telling strangers all about yourself, but you're not hearing that feedback. So we wanted you to know that as you make this decision. And the second thing is, this is going to be a really difficult place to work, right? We think this should be the hardest job you have and the best job that you have. And you're going to grow more here than anywhere else, right? But we want you to make that decision knowing there's going to be difficult days, but that in the end, it's worth it, right? That's a very different conversation than like, thanks, we've gone through the interviews, here's the offer, let us know, you've got 5 days, right? Very matter of fact, okay? The last point here is build excitement leading to day one and even after day one. So I think with schools, right, this can be tricky because sometimes you have a very long gap between when an offer is made and those first few days of school. So where you can build excitement is, connecting them with more people, starting to answer those questions about those first weeks. We have a PDF that's like, here's what to expect your first week. It's actually really basic, but people really appreciate it because they're like, what do I wear? Who am I going to meet? What time are we starting? And we just lay that out and we have a conversation about it, but they have a document to refer to, right? The other thing we do, and I don't know if this is possible, right? We try to get all the paperwork, and ours is all digital, done before the first day. So their onboarding experience the first week, we don't do any paperwork, right? And if you can't do that, I would encourage you to push it off as much as you can so that it's not what they expect, right? Usually the definition of a good experience is not what you expected, right? It's better than you expected. And so if you've already started, jobs in the past, you expect I'm going to do a bunch of paperwork and then I'm going to awkwardly sit around for a week or two while I figure out where I'm going and who I should talk to. So if you can answer those questions and create that experience where they know who to talk to, their first days are lined out, every hour is packed, and they know exactly what's expected of them, and you can give them a preview of that, it's a very different and a better experience than that ambiguity of the unknown when starting a new job. All right. So that is it for there, but we would love to answer questions and help as much as possible. Just, if you have ideas or if you have thoughts about, how to navigate, right, some of these ideas that we've seen here.
Open it up to any questions in there. You can unmute, or if there's anything in the chat. I do want to, if you're thinking of some questions, I did want to let everyone know that Don and I are working closely with Apogee and Yuri on our end, and getting a copy of School CEO into all of your hands for the summer conference is part of our goal there. So we're looking to make sure we can try and do that. So if you haven't seen that magazine, it does have a lot of great content in there, and we're hoping to get you all a copy at the summer.
Yeah, and to Mike's question, yeah, I think Don or Matt, we can get you guys a copy, right? And you guys can share that. Cool. Okay, got the thumbs up. Nice. And I'll link to School CEO here. One thing I would encourage you to, like, the study is in there, but there's also a lot of really good videos that I think are like both inspirational and encouraging, and just there's a lot of information in there as well.
Also a new podcast, if you're into podcasts, School CEO podcast, you should check out.
It's very good.
Can we see the thing you send to new hires about what they should wear to work and what time they should come and whatever that is?
Sure.
Or is that not allowed?
I can show you. Sure.
I'm kind of curious to see what this says because, like, I'm wearing a t-shirt
Man,
today, right?
now I've like hyped it up too much. Okay, sure. Man,
I think it
yeah.
has a thing that says you're not allowed to have any pictures behind you. You can only have a white wall.
So it's a little different in COVID, right? So we actually are not talking much about what to wear in this one because it's a COVID edition. But yeah, it's like, hey, we're going to start at 9:30 a.m. on Tuesday. What should you expect your first week? This is a pared down version. The pre-COVID version is much more involved, but yeah. What should I have with me? You'll already have your laptop, those types of things. Yeah. And this seems so basic, right? But when you're thinking about starting a new job, you're like, what time do I show up? What will I have with me? What do I need to bring? Like it seems so basic, but there's this context that you have after you've been somewhere for just a little bit of time, right? And the way we think about onboarding, right? It used to be 3 days before COVID. Now it's about a day and a half. But how do we give them as much context as possible, right? To really be successful in an organization, you're trying to figure out how do things work here? What is expected of us? Those types of questions. And so we really spend the first day giving them as much context into our story, right? How did Apogee start? How have we grown so fast, right? We're in more than, I think almost 2,000 school districts across the US, right? Just this really fast pace of growth. How do we think about client success? How do we think about all these different parts of the business? But then also telling them about how the education market works, right? Like you're all experts on how education works, but most people don't know how a school board operates, right? And an engineer probably doesn't need to know that. But again, we want to give them context into how things work, right? And so there's just these little bits of information that they can start to kind of pin up because they have that context.
I think that simple thing is, it is simple, but it's the questions that you have when you're starting a job that you're afraid to ask. When I started a different job, not this one, I literally had no idea what time I should come to work. And I felt so dumb asking that question. But
and that's where like those culture champions,
I mean, who knows?
Yeah. Those culture champions or those buddies can be really helpful for that, right? Like if you're a new math teacher, you don't want to, ask the head math teacher, what should I wear, right? You're like, that seems ridiculous. But if you have someone that's kind of that third party that like, I just know they're a nice human and they're in the English department, so like I'm safe, right? That can be really helpful as well. So it doesn't have to be a PDF. It can be a person or just someone that's that trusted partner that was with them through the interview process. So like my team recruiters are actually in every single interview, even though they probably don't need to be, right? But there's that familiar face at each stage.
I have a question. I run my social media for our district and I get a lot of emails. Can you please post this position on Twitter? Can you post it on social media? And I know like that's not a great way to search for people. And I was looking at your slide that said that a lot of people heard about their first job from people that work in the district. Do you just like recommend it goes into like employee newsletters? Do you talk to like employees in districts saying, hey, we have a math teacher opening? Do you tell other math teachers that to try to recruit people? Like what's the best way to communicate to your employees that you have these openings in hopes of attracting people to your district?
Yeah, I'm always hesitant to give you advice, but here's my opinion. My opinion is if someone's like, hey, can you post this? Be like, I'd be happy to, but have you talked to people about it already? Have you put it on your social media, right? Have you mentioned this to any friends? Who have you called, right? And maybe that's a little bit like too passive aggressive, but my point is like, you can tell them like, look, the majority of people actually find out about jobs from people, not accounts, right? So help me help you, and like let's get the word out there. And for a long time, I think Apogee and Mark is an early employee. I came after him, but like 75% of our employee base was referred in some way, right? That's dropped a little bit because we've been growing so fast, but still like 50%. And I can put stuff on Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn all day, but what actually makes the difference is someone making a human connection with someone else. And this actually happened. We had a job for a network administrator that we've had a really hard time filling, right? Like high standards, it's a very technical role. Been looking for 6 months. Someone on our team that just started 2 months ago bumped into someone, talked to them for 10 minutes, was like, oh, you know what? You should apply for this. And he's starting in 2 weeks, right? Like it's just crazy that we could spend so much time doing something and then it's like this chance encounter. So I would ask them like, how can we help there be more chance encounters, right? How can you help me have more conversations, meet people, text your friends? Like that sounds so basic, but people trust people outside of HR about a job more than someone in HR, right? Because that is their job. Is that helpful?
Yes, very helpful. Thank you so much.
And Lon, did you have a question? I saw you unmute. Oh, you're still muted.
Wow. Okay, there we go. Thank you. Our HR department likes to do we need a math teacher, but we need one at 3 schools. And so they interview all these people and then they go, you're going to be at this school. And that person, what I've been trying to get through to them, yeah, you're interviewing 10 candidates, but they're also interviewing us, because I guarantee you everybody on this screen has a math opening. So those teachers have a choice of where they can go. Hey, they may want to live in Flagstaff. They may want to live in Chandler. And a lot of HR people are like, this is the way we've always done it. No, you can't do it that way. But thank you. I'm going to take a lot of this. We're getting a new HR director this summer. So a lot of it's going to be like, because I've always asked, so you should post those per school. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And I've seen job descriptions. I'm like, that's not a math teacher job description. That's actually a bus driver job. Oh yeah, we just copied and pasted the wrong thing.
Yeah,
so
yeah, I think that's where you do have to get involved. And yeah, Lon, I guess my opinion on that first part as well would be, yeah, I would say, like, what's the difference between this job posting for this school and this school, right? What are the unique cultures, or what are these? Who's going to be best for school A and who's going to be best for school B? And sure, we can interview all of them, but I really want to make sure as we go through this process that we're thinking about where they would fit best. And for like that top candidate, say like, you can choose, right? Here's the advantages of A, B, and C, but we want you to have that choice, right? And if school A is not going to be an option for a candidate, right? Say like, hey, we're not thinking of you for this school anymore, but here are the other 2 options. We want to be upfront and transparent. But we're happy to talk about like schools B and C in more detail to help you get a better feel for that.
Yeah, it's just kind of weird. It's weird that they're stuck in this. We've always done it this way, and it's like, well, we have 8 schools now. So, but I just want to thank you to clarify some of this stuff, and I will, like, so when we get the slides, I will be taking it back, because they need to understand that they have to, like I said, we're being interviewed too, and a lot of people don't realize that. And if that communication's not there, because I get the same thing, put this on Facebook, put it on. 99% of the people on our Facebook are parents. They're not coming here to work. They want to see it.
And yeah, people interviewing you is really key, right? That's why I say involve culture champions, not just the subject matter expert, right?
Thank you.
You want the person that is going to get interviewed back the best, right? And actually give like a really kind of exciting picture into what it's like to work there. Yeah. Shelly, you've got your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you, Tyler. This is all really good information. Do you have any special tips to help us attract a more diverse staff?
This is a great question. So this is not an easy thing, right? I don't think in a few minutes I can give a good answer to this. I would say be authentic and honest. And I acknowledge this is a complicated topic. So like maybe we can stop the recording here or something here, right? I don't think you should post a bunch of pictures of how diverse your schools are if you're not diverse, right? Like you see this at colleges all the time where it's a small school, it's 1,000 students, there's 5 Black students, and they're on 75% of the pictures. And I think it's well-meaning, right? I think the goal there is to say, like, we want to attract more people that we don't have currently, and this is how we're going to do it. But it can come off really inauthentic when they show up and they're like, what? Right? Like, this is not what I was told. So I think you have to be careful there. And I think it's okay to acknowledge and say, you know what? And this is true of Aptitude, right? Do we have diversity? Yes. Do we have enough? No. Would we like to get better? Absolutely. And we try to be really careful about not pointing to certain things that say like, we've checked the box and we're good, right? We want to say like, we're doing some things that are getting us in the right direction, but we know that there's a lot more to do. So that's a long non-answer. I would just say really focus on being authentic. And going back to the, I don't know your first name, C. Washington. Sorry about that. That question is a great one, right? Because this is the problem, right? People know people that are like themselves. And so where you have friends that are not like the people you currently have, tell them about job descriptions, right? How do you get into circles of people that you don't currently get in front of very often that know great, smart people that would be great in your schools, right? Everybody has a network. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you just like cross over into a different circle and like start telling people about what you're doing in those jobs, you're now like in a whole different area. And I think that's huge for us, right? So the way that our team thinks about that is we want more diversity, but we really want to get into the circles that we're not known yet to find the best people there. And sometimes that is race, sometimes that is other demographics, right? But we want to find the best people, whoever they are and wherever they are, but we know that we're not in every circle that we could be. Does that help? How you pull that off is a big question, right? I don't think it's easy. I think it's, yeah, get more people involved, right? Hiring should be everyone's job, and a couple of people get paid for it. You know?
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm just conscious of the fact we're at 11 o'clock,
Yeah,
which is phenomenal because we've had questions, which we love. We would like to say a big thank you to Apogee and to all of that phenomenal information. I think it's come up a couple of times. We'll work with you guys to make sure that we're sending out the slides to everyone. And we'll also send out your information if you're open to that, so people can reach out.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, happy to answer emails and just, yeah, this is obviously something I'm excited about. So where I can be helpful, let me know, and Mark too. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you to Mark and Tyler. We're going to sign off with Stephanie Ingersoll, who I hope is still on the call.
Hi, guys.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you, Stephanie. Over to you.
Sorry I joined late, but the parts that I did hear are like really insightful. Thank you very much, Apogee. I really appreciate it. I have the benefit of sitting in the HR hallway, so I have my HR director and HR people constantly coming at me, and I'm heavily involved in recruiting. So that's a huge benefit, but there's so much that you guys shared in that back half that I'm going to be able to apply to that. So thank you so much. To all of our members who attended, thank you for attending today. It was awesome. And Dawn and Matt, you always do a fabulous job of providing us useful content that I know we can go back and apply in our districts immediately. And just a reminder to all our members that our summer conference registration opens today. So Dawn will be sending out information about that. So you'll be able to register today. It's virtual, but Dawn and Matt have just been working really hard to make sure that it is going to be one of the best that we've had. So shout out to them and thank you for pivoting, as we all say, and during these unique times. So that's all I got.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. I think we're probably ready to sign off. We know everyone's super busy. Happy Friday. Thank you to our presenters today. Really another phenomenal quarterly. Thank you to my partner in crime, Matt, who has really just been phenomenal. I had a busy 2 weeks and Matt's just really taken over everything and done amazing. Matt, if you're still there, do you have anything to share with our Asper friends before we sign off?
No, just thanks for being here. And I think I speak on behalf of everyone on this meeting to Tyler and Mark. Just thank you for sharing valuable content with us. We've all sat through presentations by companies or by vendors that were not like this one today. So we just appreciate you sharing this content that we can all use and go back. And we look forward to your next presentation at the conference.
Cool. All right. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you having us.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Enjoy your weekend. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.